Hi, everybody. Um, Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today on this webinar. Webinar is titled Tackling New Job Search Challenges, and Terry Gillis, who is the CEO and President of ARIA Consulting, he will be the host for today's webinar. All of you are on mute because we have a lot of you joining. But if you do want to contribute and share and chime in, please use the chat window. Um, and when you use the chat window, please ensure that you are writing to all panelists and participants. That way, everybody gets to see what you are typing. Usually, we get all the messages coming directly to the panelists, which is okay, but everybody else doesn't get to see it. I realize I forgot to introduce myself. I am Jincy George. I'm a talent management consultant with um, Okay, and this webinar is being recorded. A recording of this webinar will be sent out to all of you tomorrow in an email, so you could look forward to that. So the slides will be part of that webinar recording. That's how you can lay your hands on it. There is a feedback survey at the end of this webinar. So as soon as we close the webinar, a survey should pop up on one of your screens. It'll be great if you could take 2 minutes to complete that survey and let us know what you thought about it. Okay, so with that, logistics are out of the way, and over to you, Terry.
Thank you very much, Jincy. Hopefully I'm live. I see my microphone making the little motions, so that's a good sign, hopefully. So welcome, everybody. Who would have thought that a few short weeks ago we would be having a webinar, least of which is a webinar on talents tackling the new job search challenges. There's always challenges to job search, but today we want to talk specifically about some of the newer challenges that exist. Perhaps the timing of this isn't quite right. We're still trying to get our sea legs relative to what the needs are in the marketplace, but nonetheless, we do read pretty staggering statistics like over 500,000 people or up to 1 million people in the last week have applied for employment insurance. So that was a sign to us that folks out there, including folks on this webinar today, could be in need of some relevant information relevant to job search. I'm going to be honest with you, some of the information I'm going to present today is not necessarily pretty, is not necessarily the kinds of things that are going to make people clap and applaud and do the wave, but nonetheless, it is real. So let's get cooking with this and see what we can get through in a short period of time. In the last several years, we have been talking about the war for talent. This was a phrase, this was a concept that was born in the late 1990s when demographers and actuarials were looking at the data for population. And what they saw and what they predicted was that the baby boomers that consume or had a lot of the roles in work were going to retire en masse. And what that would result in is pretty much what we saw up until about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And that reality was that jobs were plentiful, opportunities were plentiful, employees or candidates, in fact, were ghosting employers. They would agree to show up for an interview and not show up, or they would sign off on a job offer or not show up. Why? Because as soon as they had one opportunity, there was another better opportunity in their mind that came along. The power had shifted over to employees. The power was in the hands of employees. They had choice. And many employers had to settle, frankly, for talent that they might not otherwise had settled for. Maybe the person they hired wasn't exactly the best fit, but hey, it was better than having nobody at all. That was our reality as little as 3, 4 short weeks ago. The pandemic that we find ourselves in right now has completely reshaped that landscape. Absolutely no question. You just have to look at the numbers coming out of the United States and out of Canada with respect to those that have lost their jobs either permanently or temporarily as we go through this pandemic. So I would argue that the war for talent has probably fizzled out. that in any situation like this, you see a shift in the power dynamic. It was with employees or candidates, perhaps like many of you on this webinar today, that has now shifted again. And despite the fact that, even the most eternally optimistic HR people will say that the current or the positive treatment of candidates that has been happening for the last several years will never change, I would suggest the complete opposite is probably the reality we're faced with. Recruiters will be overburdened and perhaps working 100% at home for the first time. This will dramatically slow the recruiting time and increase what could be now candidate ghosting. So there you go, turning a concept on its head. Applicants need to become much more tolerant of the inevitable delays that are going to be coming, while at the same time trying to be persistent. And uh, we're going to talk about some specific things that are going to happen and some of the things that you can do to build these or build strategies to address some of the issues that we're going to see as this continues to evolve. Ever the optimist, in every single one of our webinars, we are starting off with never waste a crisis, because whenever there's a crisis, you have two choices. You have the run and duck and hide choice, or you have the let's get busy, let's get focused on what is the opportunity in this. And I choose to focus on what is the opportunity in this. And the opportunity that is in this for all of you on this webinar today, or who may be listening to this webinar, is an opportunity for you to get a competitive advantage that many other people just simply will not have. What we offer at ARIA Consulting through our career transition practice is meant to help you get a competitive advantage. And let's be honest, right now, having a competitive advantage in a tight labor market, or certainly a temporarily tight labor market, is to everybody's best advantage who's on this call. So that's what I always try to focus on, is what is the opportunity in all this. So like if you were on our webinar a week ago, if you were on any of our webinars, that at least the ones that I have been leading, I have been focusing relentlessly and reminding people relentlessly around where to focus your mental energies. Because where we focus our mental energies makes a huge difference in terms of how we execute well. And really, as always, 2x2 matrix. Some of you may have seen this at other presentations. We're showing it to you again. Across the top in our columns, we have what you can control and what you cannot control. And in our rows, we have what are you thinking about, what are you not thinking about. So the first box is when you're thinking about things that are in your control. That is constructive problem solving and great opportunity seeking. However, some of us spend too much time thinking about things that we cannot control. We think too much about things that we have absolutely no control over. If you are thinking a lot about what the weather is going to be like tomorrow, that's not very smart, because you're thinking about things that you can't control. You're endlessly worrying. If you're thinking about where the pandemic may end up, we have no control over that. So that's endless worrying. I would prefer, and I think most would agree, that it's better to be focusing on the things that you can control. When you're not thinking about things that you can't control, of course, that's missed opportunities or denials, or potentially even more living in a fantasy world. And of course, when you're not thinking about things that you can't control, that's awesome, because you're conserving energy. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get everybody to move up into that box, thinking about those things that you can control. This is the awesome thing that we can all be focusing on right now, thinking about the things that we can't control. And nothing is more real, nothing is more appropriate than thinking about the things that you can control within the realm of job search right now. If you find yourself in transition at this point in time, what are the things that you can't control? We're going to talk to you about some of those things today. Because fundamentally, our beliefs, what we believe, control what we think, and what we think control how we feel, and how we feel control how we act. So when we believe things like things we can't control, it has a negative impact on the actions that we may take. When we focus our beliefs on the things that we can't control, and we have thoughts that result in positive feelings and thoughts that result in positive actions, then that provides us with the kind of energy that we need to execute well on a plan. So Here's one of the very first facts and realizations that we have to come to. And that first one is you will have to wait longer for a job right now. There's absolutely no question about that. There are fewer job opportunities as companies slow down or shut down. In fact, a lot of the traditional people who have been responsible for hiring are probably furloughed right now or on leave or have on layoff. Um, and now it is estimated that 1 in 5, up to 20% of typical workers will be facing reduced hours or lost jobs. The volume of applicants, just naturally by pure mathematics alone, will literally double. So if we take that together, this means that it will take weeks longer for a company to make a hiring decision. It means that you'll have to be organizations, or you will have to be in a stronger economic position to be able to hold out until you receive the next great job. Of course, in some especially troubled industries like the airline industry, for example, it'll be years and years before there's any realistic chance for a person from outside the industry to get into that. So I'm sorry for those of you who may have thought that your future involves something in that industry. That industry, the cruise line industry, travel tourism industries, are going to take a long time to recover. And therefore, it's going to be a longer process to infiltrate those particular industries. But nonetheless, on the flip side of that, on the hope side of that, there is a site, and we will post this. I didn't put it into my slide deck. I apologize. That is now looking at over 95 different organizations across Canada right now who are actively searching for people that need people. So we'll get that posted for you. I forgot to do that. I apologize. Um, Things that are active right now: healthcare, protective equipment, transportation, logistics, warehousing, believe it or not, retail in terms of the fundamentals like pharmacy, like groceries, like food. If you think about Maslow's hierarchy of need, that's your best friend right now in terms of trying to identify the industries that are in need of folks right now. So you may have to wait a little bit longer. You probably will be waiting a little bit longer. But what we want to talk to you about today is how to get into the front of that line. So one of the ways to get to the front of the line, your resume will have to be customized and have to be perfect. At ARIA, we talk with our candidates all the time about the 3 factors that are critical to a good resume. Those 3 factors are: it has to be look really nice. So this is not a time to take everything and anything that you've ever had about yourself and jam it into an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. This isn't going to work. If you try and jam it in there with 8-point font, forget it. First of all, folks like me with readers, you see them here. I can't read that font, and I won't. When I've got a stack on my desk that's the length of your arm, if I see anything that is going to prohibit me from getting to the core of what your message is, that includes poorly written, poor font size, whatever, I'm going to kick it to the side of the desk. That's going to be true for others as well. Okay. Also, many organizations will move to automatic tracking systems or automatic resume readers or automatic resume screening software. You can bet your bottom dollar that they will be setting those criteria very, very high. So if you submit a resume with a single flaw, your chances will drop to 0. This has to be flawless at this point in time. Your chances will also be extremely low if you submit a one-size-fits-all. So as I mentioned, we teach 3 things in resume. Number 1, looks good. Number 2, it has to be accomplishment focused. And the third thing, it has to be relevant. Only sell the things to the organization that they are looking for. Don't try to sell them everything. Make it their job to determine what factors in your resume are relevant to them. You have to be lockstep, specifically relevant to what that organization is looking for. You can't submit a one-size-fits-all, broad or non-customized resume. Those days are gone. The fact of the matter is that applicants smart enough to submit resumes that are customized and fit the job like a glove will receive a much higher resume ranking. And that customization will mean that resumes contain more of the right keywords and have skills drawn directly from the company's job description. It always fascinates me how people can ask us to review a resume and they'll give us the job posting and they're completely disconnected. You've got to be in lockstep with that job application. If your resume does make it to a human person, or a human person, that's great language, a human recruiter rather, be aware that due to the volume of resumes that they will be receiving, they will be looking for even the smallest excuse to reject you. A single format error, a typo, a grammatical error will mean that your resume will more than likely be instantaneously rejected. You'll never know that that rejection had nothing to do with your qualification. That means that you literally have to customize your resume. And yes, you may need to be an English major. Now, some of you may be just going, oh, mother of darkness, what do I do now? That's where you get buddies. That's where we use this beautiful internet of ours. That's where we get people and you send it to a friend and you get them critique it for you, get them to go through it for you, get a second or third or fourth, or yes, even a fifth set of eyes on your resume to make sure it is flawless. It has to be perfect. So hopefully we're not depressing you too much yet, because these are things that you can't control. This is totally doable, folks. We can get this done, but we need to make sure we're doing this. The next thing, you will more than likely have to excel at video interviews. We spent years and years teaching people, training people, coaching people on how to conduct an interview. Heck, we used to have workshops where we spent a half an hour practicing handshakes. Now handshakes are the big taboo, elbow pump. But you're not going to be meeting people face to face for the next little while. Highly unlikely. We're going to be doing this. We're going to be doing video interviewing. So guess what? If you're going to be doing video interviewing, get really good at it. If you got a camera, okay, you got to look right into that camera. One of the defaults that I have is I have difficulty keeping an eye on the camera because I can see myself. So if I move myself right here, at least now I can see, it seems like I am looking directly into the camera. Another little tip I have on my screen right here, I have a little, I don't know if you can see this, maybe I'm bringing it up here. I have a little smiley face. That reminds me to smile, which I'm not doing, but I'll do it now. To smile when you are on a video interviewing. It makes a difference. And you can probably also tell the change in my voice when I do smile. It makes it better. So these are things we used to teach people on telephone interviewing back in the day. We're going to be bringing that information forward. So make sure you are going to be doing really well at video interviewing. We don't have the time or bandwidth right now to get into that, but that'll be something that we'll be bringing forward into the future around how do I excel at video interviewing, and actually probably practicing some of that. So you're also probably going to need to get ready for automated interviews. That means that chatbots rather, and software, we're getting really good at this. We actually, just before all this pandemic hit us, we were seeing an uprise in the number of AI applications, artificial intelligence applications, that were focused specifically on interviewing, where they would have you interview and they would critique you. Well, guess what? If we can critique your interview, we can also take that interview and we can grade it and move you forward. So we're going to need to get used to that. Talking into a camera without anybody else there, it's going to feel weird. We're probably going to need to get used to that. And like I said, for those of you who are on this webinar right now, and for those of you who are listening in on this webinar as a recording, these are the competitive advantages that can make a huge difference for you right now. The bottom line is always before, and this is not new, is you will need to have a memorable competitive advantage to stand out. One of the challenges in job search always is, how do I stand out compared to my competition? This is when you need to know the organization inside out. Most people will break out of the rash at what I'm about to say. But the reality of job search, this is the biggest sales presentation of your life. When I say sales, a lot of people will break out in a rash because they think that's just awful. I never want to be a salesperson. And unfortunately, you have to become the salesperson of you. The good news is it's not that hard. I think sometimes we get kind of caught up with sales as being, straw hat and cane and step right up and whatnot. That's not it at all. Sales is not sales. Sales is need fulfillment. Somebody has a need, you have skills, experience, and knowledge, you can make that need come together. That becomes your job. A great book years ago that I read that I'll never forget, was called Beyond the Vendor Trap. And it talked about the very essence of good salespeople. What they do is they understand the company that they are talking to, and they understand the needs of that company. Same for you as a candidate in job search. Understand what their needs are. Make sure you have your stories aligned with what their needs are, And like I said did before, you can make that marriage happen. That doesn't take a incredibly skilled salesperson to do that. That takes an incredibly skilled person to identify where needs are and to be able to articulate what you have to offer and how they meet those, how what you have to offer meets those needs. So not hard, sounds a little tricky, but totally doable. And of course, in that frame of mind, it's not about you. Employers don't care about you. Now, that's a horrible thing to say, especially in the world of up to a few weeks ago, employee engagement was really important. Allow me to explain that. What I mean by employers don't care about you, employers, when they are in need of talent, they're not necessarily concerned about each and every single individual. Their number one concern will be, I have a problem. How can I get this fixed as quickly as possible? The daunting task now of being inundated with thousands of resumes is going to make a lot of managers, a lot of organizations, it's going to make their heart stop. Not literally, but figuratively. And the reality is, if you can present yourself as a solution to their problems, as a solution rather than it being about you, then you will stand out. You have to also show an incredibly intense interest in the organization and the value add. These will be critical like never ever before, because it's just a tough time. And the reality is that with a number of applicants now growing exponentially, employers now have choice again, whereas they may not have had it as little as a month ago. So stand out. Make sure you understand the three core things that you've got going for you: your skills, your experience, your knowledge. Those are the things that you sell to organizations. Make sure you understand what those are. Make sure you understand how they're relevant to the organization, and couple that with an intense interest in the organization. And I guarantee you, you will stand out from the crowd. The other one, this one's probably obvious because we're all doing this right now. A lot of us are anyway, and that is be prepared to show that you can work from home. Virtual work from home uh, uh, setups are not going to disappear fast. It's not like we're going to turn off the switch at some date in hopefully the near future and suddenly everybody's just going to flood back to the workplaces. I believe that we're going to see this in place for some period of time. So we need to show that we are prepared to work from home. That means you got a really good home office space devoid of distractions. That means that you've got what I like to call Job Search Central. You've got a place that you can call your own, where you can close the door, you can turn off the noise, you can turn out the noise, the barking dogs, the kids, etc., etc. Tricky, tough time, but need to be able to demonstrate that. And if we're doing virtual interviewing or video interviewing, that's a great place to showcase, or a great way for you to showcase how you can, in fact, work from home. The other one too is people are going to be a little pickier now, and they're going to want to know: Are you up to date? Are you up to date in terms of your professional development? Are you up to date in terms of what you have to offer? Right? They're going to be looking for: Do you have upgraded skills? So as we've mentioned in previous webinars, and I'll mention it again here, if you have the ability to take some time and do some professional development. LinkedIn, for example, is giving away LinkedIn e-learning modules right now. We'll be making an announcement within the next day around some of the e-learning modules that we will be able to provide everybody and anybody that wants access to a number of different e-learning modules through our partnership with Skillsoft. These things are plentiful. Get on the computer, Google, free e-learning resources, get up to date, make sure you're spit shining all of your skills and abilities right now. This is a great time to be doing a little bit of homework on you. And remember, responses will be slow. Okay, the sudden rise in the unemployment rate has the power shifting back to the companies. There's no question about that. And recruiters and those that are in hiring mode are going to be overburdened. And couple that with the fact they're working from home, it's going to just slow things down. So just be prepared for things to be slow. And of course, use the time to reflect, while you're waiting for your ship to come in. Why not do a little maintenance work on the pier? This goes back to that professional development I was just talking about. So as always, big proponent, big fan of develop a plan. Plans are important. Plans are awesome. Plans keep us focused. Plans keep us grounded. So, what are the three most critical things that you have planned for today or for the week relative to your job search? What are the three things? Don't make a list the length of your arm. Don't make a list that's 15 items long, because what will happen is you'll only get one or two of them checked off, and you'll think, I didn't do very much today. If you get one or two checked off a list of three, think how much better that feels. It feels like you got most of it done. So don't overburden yourself with a to-do list the length of your arm. It's just not going to work, and it's going to make you feel bad. Stick to three critical goals for the day, and then three overarching critical goals for the week. Awesome. Then communicate that plan with whomever will listen to you. These are your job search buddies. These are your friends. These are your family. We can still be talking to each other. We have amazing technology. It frightens me to think of what a pandemic would have been like 30 years ago without this kind of technology, without tap cards and without credit cards and whatnot. It would have been way worse. So in a way, we're blessed to have the technology we have today that we can adequately address the challenges faced by this pandemic. So don't turtle, don't turn inward, communicate, get on the phone, get on Zoom, get on whatever your platform is that you're using to connect with people. Keep that connectivity going, get their insight and help and communicate that plan. And of course, ask others for help. Reach out. Don't get burned out, because this is a great time for us all. We're all going through this right now. We're working from home. We're isolated. Reach out and touch someone. That sounds like a great jingle for a company. I think it was at one time. As always, this is my favorite news slide of all when we're doing any of these webinars, and that is go get some sunlight whenever you can. It's a great day outside right now. The sun is shining. As soon as we're done here, I'm going outside. I'm getting some sunlight. Why? Because sunlight produces serotonin, and serotonin lowers our blood pressure and our cortisol. Cortisol is that awful stress hormone that can really make us on edge. Sunlight, just by pure biomechanics, biochemistry, can actually lower our stress levels. You know this because every time there's a sunny day, we all feel just a little bit better. Go get some sunlight. Give yourself that time out. And when you see a sunny day like today, and I know that can be a bit of a odd occurrence in southwestern Ontario sometimes, get on out there, grab some sunlight. You'll feel better for me. Trust me, that'll be great. So as always, folks, keep calm and wash your hands, and keep calm and keep physical distance. These are the important new mantras that are going to help us get through this. We will get through this. We've got this thing. We just need to be smart about it. Hopefully, we've given you some quick tips today that will help you navigate what is going to become a more complicated and more competitive job search landscape. I know we did this very quickly and 30 short minutes. There's obviously more to the story, but hopefully that gives you some great immediate insights into the world of job searching in April 2020. So with that, I thank you for your time. We'll take questions or comments. Jinsey, I'm going to have you come back online and give me a hand with that. So hopefully you can join us again.
Yes, I'm right here, Terry. We had one of our participants saying that it was very interesting that you spoke about not presenting an industry, not presenting an overall aggregate of one's capabilities, but actually to focus on industry specific
Yes.
skill
Yeah.
set. So,
Yes.
you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I think human behavior is that we all have a whole cornucopia of skills and experiences and accomplishments that we're very proud of, and we should be proud of. There's absolutely no question about that. The snag is in when you're dealing with an employer who may have a very limited amount of time to spend with you. While the fact that you may have done something remarkable that's not relevant to what they're looking for, and it makes you proud as all get out, it's just not relevant to them. I often will use the analogy of somebody who might be selling a car, and hopefully this will work. And if it doesn't, I apologize. But imagine, if you will, that you're looking for a car and you're looking for safety. You're looking for anti-lock brakes, and you're looking for second generation airbags, and you're looking for crumple zones and that sort of thing. If the salesperson selling you a vehicle is smart, they're going to focus on those features of the vehicle. They're going to show you the crumple zones. They're going to show you the third generation airbags. They're going to show you the crumple zone or the impact zones and all the safety features of that particular vehicle. The next person comes into the showroom and says, I'm looking for something really sporty. The smart salesperson is going to say the exact same vehicle they just showed you about safety. They're going to show this new person, and they're going to point out the sporty features of the car, maybe the size of the engine, maybe the fuel economy, maybe the 0 to 60 kind of components. So while all of those pieces brought together makes a holistic picture of that vehicle, what a good salesperson will always do is they'll focus the features and benefits of that particular product. In this case, you as the candidate will be doing this on the specific needs of that particular employer. And that's what differentiates the average job seeker from the awesome job seeker, because the awesome job seeker knows that, and the awesome job seeker promotes those things that they know are most relevant to that particular employer. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Terry. I also have one more question here. How important in this whole new job search world will education be versus experience?
Education is always a great question. It's brought up all of the time. The other one that's brought up, and let's get it on the table, is age. So, these are things that people have heard lots of different stories about. If you don't have a formalized education, then, why even bother? I don't believe that. What I believe is that employers hire three things. They hire skills, they hire experience, and they hire knowledge. Skills, experience, and knowledge do not come just from education. Skills, experience, and knowledge do not come just from a work history. Skills, experience, and knowledge don't just come from the number of trips you've taken around the sun in your lifetime. Skills, experience, and knowledge come from your time in your previous jobs. Not always just paid, by the way. Some people I know who have built incredible careers where they're focusing on their paid work and also on their non-paid work. And that non-paid work is just as relevant, just as compelling. It doesn't make it any less valuable, the skills and experience and knowledge in a non-paid point of view. Just because you don't get paid for it doesn't make them any more or less relevant than paid work. So I don't believe that education is the be-all end-all. Sure, if you've got something that's pretty exciting and you want to promote it, sure, that's a great thing to promote. But the lack of it doesn't make you any more or less of a candidate. I do not believe that. Fundamentally, employers hire skills. That's what they hire. And I have yet to know anybody walking out of a university, a college, or wherever, a training program that comes out and says, hey, I've got this certificate and now I'm skilled at this. That doesn't work that way. What it works is stories that demonstrate tasks that you've completed. Those are the things that teach us about skills. So that's where I think that still holds. I don't think anything has changed. With respect to age, same thing. Everybody thinks age is a factor. The 20-year-old thinks they're too young. The 32-year-old thinks they're too junior. The 40-year-old doesn't know what's going on. The 50-year-old thinks they're over the hill. The 60-year-old is, oh dear God. The 7-year-old says, well, what am I even bothering for? Everybody thinks age is an issue. And it's only an issue if you want to make it an issue. Remember, skills, experience, knowledge. That's what employers want to hire. That's what they want to buy, rather. And so it doesn't matter how it comes packaged. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Terry. That's a very good answer. Terry, one more question I have here, which is one of our participants says, I have noticed that a lot of application sites are zeroing in on income expectations very quickly. I am used to that being a negotiation.
Right.
What are your
So,
thoughts?
yeah, so again, one of the things, the trick about what I would call job posting sites is keep in mind right now, if you're a manager and you have to put a job posting out there in this new world, in the short few weeks that we've been into this pandemic, guess what's going to happen? You are going to get flooded, like flooded with resumes and applications. It's just going to be coming at you like 90. Like it's just going to be massive amounts. A month ago, this many. Now, this many, because the number of people looking has grown exponentially. So one of the smart things any recruiter is going to do is they're going to say, how can I get people to self-select out of the process? How do I get people to not apply to this job that should be applying to this job? And the one way you do that is you put in things like salary expectations. And if your salary expectations are not aligned, you get kicked out. If it's a $40,000 a year job and you say you want $100,000 a year, you're gone. If it's a $100,000 a year job and you put in $40,000, you're gone, because we don't have time to get into that with you. So this is a time when you need to understand, absolutely mission critical, what those roles are. Ranges help you. We used to advise that perhaps you dismiss that as a conversation for later on. The problem with applicant tracking systems and technology now is they won't let you get away from that. So I believe a range can be incredibly helpful. If not, do your homework, sniff around the internet to find out a number that can get really close to what it is. Um, that's going to get you through the process. I wouldn't worry about it after that, that's going to tie you down to a specific amount. That's just getting you through a threshold or getting you through a barrier. Get through the barrier, worry about the salary on the flip side. I'm sure that'll work out.
Thank you, Terry.
You bet.
Terry, it's a question that's pretty much on a similar line, but there's one question which is, in a competitive market, how will salaries be impacted?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball to know what's going to happen inside this context, but at the end of the day, one of the things that I have been very much focused on for several years now, we'll see what happens, is at the end of the day, and a lot of people don't like it when I say this, but fundamentally, anybody who's being paid to work is actually being paid on commission. And as soon as, if I said to anybody on this webinar today, hey, would you like a job working on commission? Most of you would say, I don't want to work on commission. That's horrible. What commission really is you're getting paid a percentage of the value you bring forward to the organization. If you're a salesperson and you bring in a $100,000 account, maybe they throw you 20% of that. Maybe they give you $20,000 or 10% or whatever. But you get a percentage of the value you create to the organization. That's commission sales. Well, guess what? As an employee, you're getting paid a percent of the value you create to the organization. So if you are a person who's getting paid $50,000 a year, as an example, rest assured that the organization is paying you a percent of the value you create by being part of that organization. Now, for some people, that's a head scratcher. For some people, they find that offensive. For some people, they think that's unfair. The reality is, if you're a small business owner, of which many across this country right now are, that are facing undue hardship, when times are great, they look like heroes. When times are tough, they're suffering and they're taking on a lot of risk. Homes on the line, mortgages, etc. That's the benefit they get for paying you a percentage of the value you bring to the organization. It's a risk factor. So to answer the question, do I think that salaries are going to be impacted because of this? I don't think they're going to be suddenly driven down for two reasons. One is most organizations are going to continue to focus on the value that is being created. Okay. Number two, this isn't going to last for long, folks. I know this seems like dark days. I know this seems like the end of days. It is not. We will be through this. Whether it's 3 weeks, 3 months, we don't know. But in a year from now, we will be looking back on this. And I know that the thing about human beings is we are resilient and we rebound. And this will rebound. The economy will rebound. It always does. This is no exception. Guaranteed. Maybe I'm an eternal optimist, but that's just the human spirit. So it will rebound. And organizations who try to take advantage of this right now, like some of those stores in Toronto we've heard about that are charging $100 for, hand sanitizer, that's going to hurt them. That's what, forgive my language, but that's dumb organizations. They're being incredibly short-sighted. They might make a quick buck right now, but that's gonna hurt them in the long run. So I don't think organizations are now going to see an opportunity to try and, lower salaries just so they can make a quicker buck in the short term. They may have to offer a lower salary right now because the revenue is down. That's real. But that's where good organizations will have really solid HR support that's going to say, listen, we have a temporary ban here. In 3 months, we'll relook at this. In another 3 months, we'll relook at this, etc. So I don't think we're going to see people taking advantage of this necessarily. Some will, some always do. There's bad apples in every batch. But I think fundamentally the fundamentals of good business will still hold true. And therefore, I do believe that we will see salaries pretty much holding as they ought to. Hopefully that wasn't too long of an answer.
No, thank you, Terry. I think we did go overboard today
We
by
did. I'm so sorry, but there's a lot of information.
yes,
So
absolutely. But
yeah.
thank you so much for your questions, guys. And
Thank you. Yes, indeed. Those were great questions. I really appreciate it. So
yeah, really good questions. If you have any more questions or if you just want to connect with us, um, please write to terry.gillis at aria.ca. It is AHRIAH.ca. Or you could write to me too. It is jincy.george at aria.ca. You could write to us. As we leave you today and close this webinar, you would see a survey pop up. Please make sure you take 2 minutes out of your day to respond to that survey.
thank you, everybody. Be safe out there.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. Stay safe. Bye bye. Thank you.